So guys, as we saw from the previous weekly outlook, we wanted to look some dollar shorts, which we have seen based off of the fundamentals, and then also of course NZD longs. And that's also what we saw here. We saw great upside here since the beginning of the week because of the rate differentials or the rates that were going to change from a cutting or easing cycle, and we're now changing to a more bullish cycle, pushing NZD up higher and probably going for more rate hikes for the NZD. Also here you can perfectly see this. So NZD for this week alone had been rising for 1.4% and the dollar was -8. So this is perfectly aligned with our weekly outlooks. So I hope you guys could also capitalize on it. And for the guys that are new, I'm Oscar Madsen. I'm a funded trader as well as a trading coach. And with this outlook, I'll look fundamentally, combining with the technicals, and see where price could head to next this week, and see if we can catch any setups. So starting off with the DXY here, what am I viewing here on DXY? Well, first of all, looking at the daily level or like the daily time frame. Again, I've been mentioning it for a lot of weeks right now, but overall we had the big move into the downside. We then saw the corrective price action, and it's also aligned with the fundamentals. People were thinking that the dollar is oversold. Now with that, again, just only based off of that, I just see price trading up higher and taking out the 102 level in the future, even when there are bearish fundamentals on the dollar, because it just has been oversold. We're selling it from the beginning of the year all the way down into the end of April, then came a bit lower, but right now the recovery has begun. So as we have also seen here recently on the dollar, we have seen bullish order flow, right? Every single time respecting the demand that has been created, and overall this could just be pushing price up higher, of course. Now there's something that is pushing price down low right now, or at least keeping price at this price level, which is of course that 100 level, which is the beginning of the DXY. So this is a very strong level, as you can see here, and we are like basically stuck and not breaking through that. So mostly that means that you need to grab some more fuel, some liquidity underneath the lows before we can trade up higher again. So this is the technical perspective here on the dollar. I want to trade towards this high, but first, in order to break actually through this level, see a little pullback here, taking some liquidity underneath these lows and then trying to trade up higher. So if price basically comes at the 98 level here underneath this low at the quarterly level, then I'll look at some buy setups here, and I think this low is not going to break as like before this high breaks. So first this high, and then we'll possibly trade down lower, not seeing anything like this. So overall, looking at a fundamental side of things, right now there is some fear of BAKSET. Let me pull up the news here. So basically BAKSET here, as you can see, is expected to step in the Fed, right, as a new like Fed member, or on top of the Fed, replacing Powell, and he's seen as somebody who is going to do a lot of rate cuts throughout his year basically, or throughout 2026, and because of that, that is bearish for the dollar, because rate cuts means a bearish dollar. So right now a lot of people are looking at that, and only the thought about that will cause fear in the markets, will cause the dollar to gain that little move down lower for some percentage, like 1.5%. Obviously it could even dump all the way down lower if he actually steps in, but as of now, just the rumor alone will pump it a little bit down lower, taking some liquidity at the lows. Now looking at the actual numbers right now, we are probably going to get a rate cut in December. Reason being, if we go to this website, looking at the dashboard from the US, you can obviously see that growth is quite strong here, The inflation is also quite steady here at 3%, which is around the 3 to 1% that they want. Of course, they want 2%, but if they are at that 3 to 1 level, that's fine, right? So it's quite steady at the moment. Of course, not the best. It could dump just a little bit, but overall that's still fine. Nothing to worry too hard. And if we then go over to the rate decisions, we can also see this year it has been cutting for like here a big cut of 50 bps and 25. So that's 3 cuts, a big one and 2 small ones, and then again 2 more. So basically this year, or actually this is all previous years, so only this year we had 2 cuts, the 2 previous months, and right now I expect another cut because of the unemployment, which has been rising and rising. As you can see on November 20th, even after the 2 rate cuts that we had here, the unemployment is still rising up higher, and that was probably because of the government shutdown here. Now overall, it could be that because the government shutdown is now over, the Fed sees the unemployment rate go a bit down lower from itself, but overall I still see the Fed cutting rates based off of these numbers. Now overall, what we have seen is also the people from the Federal Reserve who have a high status mentioning that cutting rates is probably the best thing to do. Overall pricing right now about 80% in the markets that we're going to have a rate cut. So that's already almost priced in. Could see just a little bit more dump maybe towards this low, but overall that is already bearish for the dollar. Now with that and with the fear of ASET stepping in, I think we could definitely see a pullback next week on the dollar, pushing it a bit down lower. But again, after we grab liquidity, one of these 3 levels here, preferably this level because it is quite strong. And also if we look at the round number levels, let me put this on, right, we can see that this is perfectly at the 9.8, which is obviously just an extra confluence, like an addition to see that price could step up higher from here. So overall, next week just looking for that downside here to grab some liquidity, and then maybe later on in the week start to look for some reversals from these levels, of course only after confirmation, and then from there again see that upside towards the 102 level. So first of all, just a little dump, then a confirmation, and then possible upside on the dollar. So looking at the yen here, looking on the daily time frame, or let's start on the weekly time frame, basically, like technically you can just see it is just bearish, right? Overall, we have this structure bearish. This is your swing high, this is your swing low. We've made the retracement here, and now we're just trading down lower. And also, of course, you guys know fundamentally this pair is very, very bearish, and we could just be trading down lower and lower here. If you also look in this move up, there's no liquidity at all, so we could also just take this liquidity and maybe from here react up higher. Looking at it from a fundamental perspective, obviously the yen is very, very weak, but there is some cautious, or you should be cautious, because the yen or the Bank of Japan could step in, just as they did over here. The yen was too weak at that point, so they had to step in, which pushed the yen up higher. Now overall here, if they stepped in at this price level, why wouldn't they step in at the same price level just a year later, right? So that's just something to think about. Now overall, it only has been a year, so I don't know if they're going to step in or not, but definitely keep on reading about it, because it could indeed give us big pushes up higher. As of now, it looks like we could grab this liquidity. If they do not anything about the yen, then of course it's just going to drop and drop. Once there's something that they're looking at, once they are talking about it, then possibly only the rumor is going to push it a little bit up higher, like here. And then when they actually implement it, you'll see the actual upside move, right? And that's possibly also over here. the same thing, but as of now I would just say just look for those yen shorts. You can see that it just has been trading down lower. Now whenever we get like very close to this level, I would definitely say okay, at around 500 basically, I would say okay, be cautious with shorting more, because from here they could definitely step in, and overall it is just a lot of demand that could push price up higher. All right, so with that I would just say continue to short this order flow. Also, if you look at the 4-hour time frame, just continue to follow the supply zones down lower and try to just trade it all the way down lower towards the 500. Now overall, if something fundamentally happens on the yen that could push it up higher, of course make sure to keep that in mind. So read your articles. Now also they are expected to rate hikes in the future, which could possibly push the yen just a little bit up higher, so also keep that in mind. At the moment I'm not really going to be actively trading the yen pairs, because like I mentioned, we gotta be worried with the possible intervention from the Bank of Japan pushing the yen up higher, and also the possible rate hikes in the future, which could also pump the yen up higher. So overall fundamentally it is bearish right now, but with the future implementations or the future fundamentals that could happen, I don't think this is the best setup at the moment on the yen, or to take any high probability longs or shorts. Now at the moment though, just immediately just follow the current order flow down lower, right? Continue down lower, and once we change the order flow, I would say be careful. It could be a fake out to continue, or it could be a actual push up higher, but make sure to read your articles to see what's going on, if they're going to be hiking rates, or if the Bank of Japan is going to intervene for the currency. All right, so going to my other pairs, so let me take all the pairs here. Looking at USD yen, of course, like I just mentioned, I'm not going to be trading the yen pairs, so I'm not going to go over them because they're just not a plus for the week. So looking at the USDCAD, I also mentioned that we could be looking for longs from this demand like this previous week, but I wanted to see a lot of confirmation, and I said to be careful because we could easily take out this low over here, right? So the reason for that was because here we failed to break that high, and then it could be high likelihood that we take out this low before now trying again to trade above that high. So of course, like I just mentioned, fundamentally at the moment I'm looking at short-term downside on the dollar, which could be pushing this pair down lower, so definitely keep that in mind. Now besides that, technically it looks nice because you are inside demand, you now took liquidity underneath these lows, and overall once we see, for example, the fractal break up higher, then we could look for longs from that monthly level. Now if that happens, of course we want to see how the fundamentals are at that moment. If they're still bearish and there's some uncertainty around the asset stepping in, right, then obviously it could just continue down lower, fuel this as liquidity to trade down lower, right, and then we have bearish order flow. But as long as the fundamentals, for example, change bullish, I don't know, because let's take a look what the numbers are next week. Maybe there will be some articles that are going to go out. Now here on Monday, tomorrow, we have some manufacturing PMI. Now overall, this is not really something that I'm looking at. I'm mainly looking at some numbers that could change the FOMC or the Fed decision. For example, not this as well, but maybe the, let's see, the ADP non-farm employment change. This is something that I'm eyeing for this week. Now for the guys that don't know what it is, it's like an estimated change in the number of employment people during the previous month, excluding the farming industry and government. So this is without the government, which is also interesting because we just had the government shutdown where a lot of people probably lost their job. So with that, this is probably going to be, yeah, dependent without the government, right? So overall, definitely eyeing this number here for this week. What are they looking at? What is the forecast? 19K. Now you can see that this is very low if you look at all the previous numbers, and overall it is just very low. So they are expecting very low people that are going to be employed during the previous month. So with that, for me, there's little downside risk, right? Because the number is already very, very low. And if the number seems to be high, that's possibly good for this currency and possibly will drive the dollar up higher, right? So definitely keep this number in mind when trading. Let's say we see this break, for example. Let's say it is Wednesday then at that moment that happens. And then I would say wait for that number. If that number is bullish, maybe place like a limit on the monthly. Of course, this is no financial advice and you need to do it yourself, but that is something that could be interesting in order to trade towards this high. So basically here we have equal highs, and I think these are very, very weak. So I want to see these highs get taken out. If I look at the daily as well, we kind of have like broken now this low here, but again it could be 1, 2, and then here, boom, a third tap, right? Now overall this could also be like everything, every single pattern, like head and shoulders, I don't know, right? But just keep in mind that here is an open supply, right? If I look on the 4-hour, that's even more clear. Just an open supply here, and we barely missed it, and we basically reacted, if you look at it, off of literally nothing, right? No liquidity, nothing. So because of that, this just seems to me like a manipulation move, and I don't know why that move like high is so strong here, because again we failed to break that high after grabbing liquidity. So we needed some more liquidity, which we did, but right now we have taken that liquidity, and now this could also just be a fake move, and now just swipe that high and basically swipe all of these sellers here, right? So overall I think upside is definitely very possible, at least towards this high. Now again we gotta see the fundamentals for that. If I also look here on market context, let's see how was the CAD performing previous week. It was quite bullish, right? Overall I'm still quite bearish on the CAD. It's not really that bullish, it's kind of neutral, but I'm still more leaning to some bearish momentum on the CAD, and for that reason I think we could definitely see some upside here. So looking at EURUSD, like I mentioned, we wanted to see some downside this week on the dollar, which means upside on EURUSD, and then we want to see upside on the dollar, which means downside on EURUSD. So I'm now looking to long this pair. So previous week I also mentioned that we could fail this low and now try to take out the highs. Now that's exactly what I'm looking at, right? So we failed to break that low, and now for me we could take out those highs. Okay, so why was this a significant low? Because it took out a lot of liquidity. So that's why it's important to look at that low to see if you break it and continue to the order flow down lower, or if we're actually going to react off of that liquidity to take out liquidity above the highs. So that's just an indication. Overall we are kind of just squeezing here, and we could see a breakout in the future. So definitely be careful, because you're also like kind of stuck in this range at the moment. We're not really trending, but overall with the fundamentals, definitely seeing that upside. Now the only thing that I do not like is, yes, you have that order flow here, and these demands are in control, and now from that latest demand zone you could trade up higher, which is definitely possible. I definitely think that's a valid setup, something like this here off of the fractal, just placing like that, stop loss here, trading it to that high. That's definitely possible, right? But I just do not like at all that we have now created two lows here and then the monthly level over here. And as you can see here on the 1 hour, we have a demand zone. Let me show that on the 1 hour time frame. you have the demand zone that is still open, and it's just again like that extra thing to see that price could possibly retrace back into that monthly level. So the first thing is, okay, you have a monthly level here. Second thing is, all right, you have two lows at that point, right? Which is quite interesting, okay? That just means that there has been some liquidity built up at the lows. Okay, you also have been kind of consolidating inside this range, so seeing a manipulation and then turning up higher could be the case as well. And then you have another demand zone, right? More confluence that we could see this downside, or yeah, see the manipulation and then move up higher. And if you then also look at that, what I just showed you, or not, it's not showing, but you have the 15300 level. That's just something small, but again, it's like that small confluence that this is some level, and I think that price could definitely trade up higher from here, just from the demand zone, the order flow, right? Like this, boom, continuing up higher. But overall, if we see that manipulation, only then I will step in and trade up higher. I don't want to step in earlier than that, because this move for me is just too risky, right? So I will only look for longs once we take out that liquidity. Let's say this moves happen and this is our fractal high. Wait for the fractal high change, then see the pullback, and then I'll take the long entry here, stop loss here, and trading towards that liquidity high, maybe even this one. Okay, but overall, dollar or EURUSD longs here. Now, why again? For me, the euro next week is also bullish. I won't go into that too deeply, but overall, I'm just a little bullish here on the dollar or on euro, and that together with a bearish dollar, just for me seems that next week we could see upside. Now, what am I going to do? Put my alert here at this liquidity. Once that alert goes off, I'll look for some longs, and I think those are very nice for next week. But we gotta be careful, because again, we are squeezing here, and we could see something like this, maybe even a deeper retracement, because you are squeezing. So keep that in mind and take a big enough stop loss here. Don't try to be too greedy because of the rangy movement right now. So like a lot of pairs here are just overall not so valid. So previous week I was mentioning those EURNZD shorts, and overall, like as you can see, they played out. Now I'm still viewing right now from this liquidity and this quarterly level upside, but I won't take a long setup. So here we have all of this liquidity. I want to take that out. Now if we do this, I want to take out this liquidity, tap this supply, and from here short down lower. Now I know, guys, if you look at the weekly time frame, you are very, very bullish, right? So fundamentally you are bullish, but like I mentioned previous week, okay, if we go to the dashboard here, and if we go to the New Zealand dollar, all right, then you can see here for the rate decisions that of course they have been cutting since basically for the whole year. They have been cutting, all right. You can see that all the way from, what is it, 5.25 interest rate at basically the beginning of this year, right? At the beginning of this year, we basically had like 4%, and we just saw cutting, right? And now it's November, so basically at the end of 2025. And what have they mentioned? Let's see if we can find it on this website. So you guys were interested where I get my information from fundamentally. Well, this is it. Let's see if we see some news. Okay, so no news. Okay, doesn't matter, probably inside the news radar, but basically the New Zealand, or the Bank of the New Zealand, have mentioned that the cutting cycle or the easing cycle might be over, which is possibly now going to be that reversal, right? So as you can see, for the past 5 years, we've seen upside, we've seen just easing, and then downside. So right now we could again see easing and then upside, or we could just see upside immediately, because they have mentioned that the easing cycle, the cutting cycle, is possibly over, okay? And when a bank mentions some things, like it's most of the time means something that they are actually going to switch their policy or just switch something. Okay, so keep that in mind, and that for me now could indicate that this move up now is the basically we've made the top, right, and we could trade down lower. Of course, calling a top here is very risky, right? You don't want to be calling tops, definitely not on a weekly time frame, because fundamentally that's hard. Now I think that could be possible with, like, if the New Zealand dollar starts to actually their first, let's say, rate ease or rate hike, then I definitely see downside, because then it confirms that they're actually going to switch. Right now this push was also obviously pure off of rumors, because nothing has changed yet, but they are going to be definitely pricing in all of the rate hikes that could happen in the future. So I want to see that pullback here just to get better prices, take out that liquidity. Then if we see the confirmation, then I'll try to short down or lower towards this level. Now you have EURUSD, but I prefer GBPNZD. Reason being, for me GBP is weaker than Euro. Okay, so for that reason I'm looking to short GBPNZD. So this is basically the same thing, but in reverse what we have seen here on the dollar. Okay, so we saw a big impulse here, we then saw the corrective price action, right? Boom, boom. Here we do not really get like a third tap, but we just swipe the high, see the reversal. Right now we could just trade all the way down towards this low, and it just makes sense overall if you look at it from a fundamental side of view. Bearish pound and a stronger New Zealand dollar in the future could definitely try this pair down lower. Now again, looking at that daily time frame, overall it was very, very bullish, but right now it just seems like with the fundamentals this could now be a reversal. Of course, be very careful with that, because this is higher risk. You're actually trading against a trend that has been going on for years, so you just want to be careful, because nothing has changed yet. Okay, but you do have some open lows here, and the NZD or the New Zealand bank said themselves that it could start to be a kind of pullback for the year. Okay, so that we could now get closer to the open basically. So that's just something to keep in mind, and that's why I'm looking for the GBPNZD shorts here. You also now created a strong high by swiping this high, and now you have broken the daily fractal here, or actually that's not the daily fractal, but I guess that's maybe possibly the weekly. It's not, but overall you see that this is like the internal structure overall, creating just overall this supply. From here I'm looking to go short. So on the 4 hour, how will I try to enter? Now you can see that you're leaving some bumps behind. Of course, we could short from the quarterly level like this, and possibly if we tap that quarterly level, then break this low clearly, I might try to get shorts if the fundamentals are just overall bearish, 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 and their articles are also bearish about this. But I would definitely prefer to see this high getting taken out, because you also have that open supply here and the quarterly or the weekly, and from here I'll also try to look for shorts again in the near future, like in some months, trading towards this overall low at 2.7. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at on GBPNZD. If we now go and look at GBPAUD, I'm also looking at shorts here, because AUD is quite strong. Also in 2 weeks I think we have the Australian dollar rate decision, which is probably going to be just a rate hike, and with that, like as you can see, for the past couple of months we have been slowly trading down lower on GBPAUD. So again, downside, little pullback, downside, little pullback, downside. Okay, now we have that little pullback, and now we could see that downside again. All right, so a lot of people, of course, again, see that for the last couple of years we have been trading up higher. Okay, but right now we also have technically grabbed liquidity, and the current order flow is just bearish. The current fundamentals are also just bearish. Okay, and we could from here just continue down lower. Now what do we see? Well, here we had a week where we didn't have a top wick. So you can see that you perfectly now grab that high of that previous week, or not previous, but one of the previous weeks, and from there see a bearish candle or bearish reaction. And from here, I'm now just looking to continue down lower. You could also argue that you are inside demand, right, which could push up higher. But again, I'm now just following the current order flow, current fundamentals, to just trade down lower to take some liquidity. Okay, so with that, looking at the 4-hour time frame, looking at the structure, it's bearish. We had made the pullback. So first we had trapped some sellers thinking that this was a swing, which was not. And then now we see the actual pullback here, also squeezing price in. Then again, this is for me like very beautiful manipulation from a technical side of view. So overall, we had been squeezing here like this. Why? Because we had that quarterly level where we just couldn't break really through that. Now what happened is that on the 4-hour we actually broke through that, right? And this probably was setting up a lot of buyers into the game, right? Thinking that this channel here would break out into the upside. Now that was just manipulation, and we then actually got immediately a bearish reaction after grabbing that weekly high, okay? And from that point on the daily, we actually closed bearish, or actually I thought we closed bearish, but it was just a big wick here, not closing bearish. But overall, you can just see it was a big move up, manipulation move, and then we actually saw the big move into the downside. And now it's clear that this was manipulation, manipulating all of these highs and then trading down lower. So why is my entry at this point? And of course my stop loss is at this strong high, takes out a lot of liquidity and is high over the order flow. But here my entry is just at the quarterly level again, but mainly if you look at the daily time frame, this is the same thing as here. No high wick, so that gets taken out. No high wick, so I won't take it out. And it also is like this liquidity and this liquidity, which is at that quarterly level, could be like a crazy wick, something like this, and then continuing down lower. All right, so that's why my entry is at that point. I just also want a nice RR. Maybe I'm going to go for a 2R, maybe for a 3R. I'll see. Normally I go for 3R, but I had talked with some traders and I might actually switch to 2R, but I'll keep you updated for that. Overall, I think GBPAUD definitely looks nice for further downside next week, 100%. That's one of my favorites. Looking at EURGBP, I'm looking for upside. Like I mentioned, the fundamentals for pound are just way weaker than the ones from euro. And overall, if you look at it from a daily perspective, okay, you have, or let's look at it from a weekly perspective. So overall, we have had downside for some years. Then this year was just completely bullish. Also, you can see you're just consolidating, right? That really doesn't really matter. So you just follow the current order flow and the current fundamentals. Euro right now is just stronger than the pound. That's it, okay? So we have taken some highs here out, but we also have some more highs left. Now, from this liquidity high, this was like a major liquidity high, right? We didn't really react at it yet, but overall we can just continue the order flow. So there are two possible scenarios for me to take out these highs, which you are going to do for me. So I want to see how are we going to take those highs out. Are we going to react right now from that quarterly level and this demand? Or is there one option where we swipe all of the lows here, tap the previous quarterly level, and from here see that upside, okay? So what I'll do is I'll try to long from this demand and the quarterly level. If that doesn't happen and we trade down lower, I'll try again from this level, okay? And if you now look at it, a lot of people immediately they see this, okay, like squeezing, but also you got to keep in mind, like, be objective. This is liquidity. If you see this, then this again, you have the same thing. So again, we don't trade like any trends or something, but it's just something to keep in mind, okay? And then from here, see the seller, for example, like a 1, 2, 3. So don't try to get to assumptions too fast, okay? Because for me, we just have now 2 levels where we could trade higher from this demand or this liquidity. So what am I going to look for? Since the fundamentals are bullish right now, I'll actually look for longs right now as well, right, from the quarterly level. So looking at this, we are for our bullish, and then from the low here into the high, we now have tapped the discount prices right at this liquidity low, which we now took out. And from here, we could definitely see upside, of course. Now, we also already have seen the fractals into the upside, already giving us double fractal breaks. Overall, have we tapped this demand? Let's see. We did. Very perfect. Okay, so it could already start to trade up higher. I'll show on a daily why I will not yet do that. But overall, yes, we have liquidity, but I'm just keeping in mind that we also have that magnet here. So all of these levels, the open levels, like as you can see, they act like magnets and then they push you away. So here we have another magnet, want to possibly trade up higher from there. Okay, so I don't want to take any longs here because it could easily from a monthly, for example, trade to that quarterly and then up higher. So I don't want to take any unnecessary risks. Now we do have some daily liquidity at that point as well at the quarterly level here, right? So I might want to just take that liquidity out. People want to long from that demand. We take those buyers out and then we go upside. That's what I'm looking for. Now here on the daily time frame, this is my daily fractal. So like I mentioned, from this overall demand, right, we could already see the reaction, but I only want to take longs if we break the daily fractal. Then I'll possibly look at longs again. If that doesn't happen and we just see something like this and then downside, of course it's going to be from this level and at monthly after the 4-hour fractals, I'll look for longs towards those highs that we mentioned on the weekly. So that's my vision on EURGBP. Just being patient here. It is not going to go away without us, and if it happens, that's fine. Okay. Looking at GBPUSD, I don't think there's nice longs here on GBPUSD. So we took a lot of liquidity out, which we're possibly now reacting to. If you look at it from a technical side of view, we have some liquidity highs here, which we could take out before shorting again, right? As I said, I'm looking for downside on dollar, which is going to push GBPUSD up higher possibly. But I also mentioned that I'm bearish on the pound fundamentally. So yes, with the current order flow, we can trade up higher, yeah, with the bearish dollar. But I won't take any longs because I'm bearish on the pound. So what I'll do, yes, this is your immediate 4-hour structure, and you possibly hit your immediate premium prices, right? As you can see, so we can sell off. Okay, you also have taken this overall supply here, made connection with that, so you could again trade down lower. Also here you took some liquidity above this high as well, so again you can trade down lower. So looking at just the 4-hour, you're bearish, you've connected with the premium prices, right? You've taken some liquidity above this high, so if the order flow now changes, we can take shorts. That's exactly what I'm looking at. Again, for me then, we need signs that the dollar can trade up higher as of now, okay? Because as of now, the dollar seems bearish in the short term. So I think for next week, we'll see upside. I won't take the longs, but after we take out that liquidity, maybe these two highs, right? Then I'll look for that confirmation to look for shorts. Again, only if the dollar aligns to go up higher again. So that's what I'm looking for. I have my alerts ready, as you can see. But that's basically something. So don't try to rush and trade on every single dollar pair, the dollar shorts, all right? I think EURUSD is a nice expression. USDCAD obviously is not a nice expression because it looks better for upside. USD Swiss, I think, seems to be valid actually, because like if you look at it fundamentally, yes, there are some rumors that the central Swiss bank will step in, that the Swiss central bank will step in and make their currency weaker. But overall, if you look at it, right, they haven't done anything yet. So this was just a rumor push here, in my opinion. Okay, and right now we are in a risk-off environment, so we could see the Swiss again rise. So here, once we break this low again, then I'll look for that monthly level again, and I'll look to just short with the order flow, with the bearish dollar, right, and with the possible stronger Swiss franc again. Let's see actually how the Swiss franc has performed previous week and previous month to see if the rumors are changing up or something else along those lines. Okay, so let's see if this loads here. I'm going to refresh the page. Let's see. So I think my Wi-Fi is just bad at the moment. I hope everything is fine on the recording. But yeah, let's see. So for a month, the Swiss franc has seen some downside. Of course, if you look at the 3 monthly, the Swiss franc has seen some upside. Also, if you look year to date, I think it is very clear. It's overall fundamentally very bullish. But for this month, we had seen some bearishness on the Swiss franc. Now, why is that? Because of the rumor that the Swiss franc is too high and they step in. Now, this is just at a random point. Because yes, the Swiss franc has touched 10-year highs. Overall, why would they step in right now? Okay, they could step in, but it was just a rumor. So let's look at the week again. And for the week, again, the Swiss franc was bearish. Okay, so let's see, USD Swiss, still the dollar was more bearish than the Swiss franc, pushing it down lower. So possibly we could still see some downside if it aligns with the technicals, even when the Swiss franc is strong. Okay, so looking at this, right, I think that overall, it still seems like the rumor is not over yet, and the Swiss franc is still kind of coming back from the overbought momentum, so giving its pullback, right? This one. Now overall, with the bearish dollar, we could now definitely step in and trade down lower, I think. If we look, okay, we are at this strong level. Of course, we don't trade any levels, but that's just something to notice. Now we are bearish, that is something we do know, but we also have failed multiple times to break this level. Okay, so this means actually that, I don't know why this is, but it's not because the Swiss central bank is stepping in at those moments. They're not doing anything. This is just the traders, actually from this level, the 7,900 or 79,000, right? Actually stepping in. All of the traders are buying then, seeing it as a level where price cannot break through. Okay, and as of now, it seems to be true. We're just bouncing off of it, so it could definitely indicate upside. Now, even if we trade up higher and do not break underneath this level, which seems like a very, very strong level, we could definitely still see a pullback for this week, right? Because of the bearish dollar, and maybe from the quarterly level, start to trade up higher with a possible bullish dollar again. So keep that in mind, okay? So I'm just looking for some downside this week on USD Swiss. Also, you're seeing that you're consolidating. Here is the 25 level. See, it's strong, right? Here is the 75. As you can see, it's also strong, reacting from that. Now again, from that 75, we could trade down lower to that 25, and from here see a breakout or something, okay? So overall, it just makes sense, or it's still possible to trade down lower. So what I look for is, again, that break to create this as your actual supply or your order flow, then this, and then maybe on the lower time frame, a 1 hour fractal or something, and then I look to short towards the quarterly and this liquidity. Okay, so that's that. So this one is actually a bit longer, this recording, but I want to really break down the fundamentals for you guys. If you guys like it or not, let me know. So looking at AUDUSD, looking at some downside here on the dollar again. So upside on AUDUSD, we see all of these highs here. Definitely want to take them out. Tap the quarterly. From here, see downside again with that stronger dollar. Now, am I going to long this one? I think it is possible. I don't know if I'm going to do it, because you can see here consolidative, okay? And you have a lot of liquidity at the lows. So I have been in shorts for a very long time. They both hit break even. I was in them for more than a month. Obviously, that doesn't matter. But I'm now looking at this here to get taken out, and then I'll try to short again. Am I looking for upside? I think I'm looking at that because of the fundamentals, right? Because again, if you look at it here from a like technical perspective, you're bullish though, but obviously you're consolidating, so don't really look at structure. But this is your 25 level, this is your 75 level. Right at this point you can see those are strong levels. Okay, so from the 25 level you took liquidity, and now you failed to break that low. Okay, you failed to break the swing low, so now we will probably take out liquidity above the highs. So from here we definitely could trade towards the 75 level, the quarterly, and these liquidity points. So again, I am looking for upside, but from what point am I looking to long? So we have a demand here, and we obviously also have like, let's just say this overall, right? Because this is just like some consolidation. There is some demand inside of here, so just from these levels we could see upside. So it basically means either from this liquidity and this demand, or just from this liquidity and something like this. Okay, to try and long again. All right, now if we don't see a pullback, then obviously we can just continue and we're not going to take any entries. If it gives the pullback, then I'll look for entries again. Okay, so that's my vision here on AUDUSD. Looking at some other NZDUSD, am I looking to short this one? Obviously I'm not, because NZD is bullish, the dollar is bearish in my opinion. That's just very clear upside here on NZDUSD. Okay, so I'll first wait for that pullback to happen. Possibly from the technicals here we are bearish, we have liquidity, we have supply here, we could see downside. Now because I know my fundamentals, I won't do it. Okay, so I want to see the downside first, take out that liquidity here, possibly tap this demand. If I from this point see the fractal shift, then obviously this is possibly going to fail to break that low and possibly going to take out the highs here, all of these trendline highs, and I 100% will take longs here, and I think those are very beautiful expressions. The only thing with this one is once we get to this low here, then possibly the dollar already has made its pullback down lower, right? Because just of the time, right? And then from there the dollar will probably rise, which is going to cause NZDUSD to not fully give the upside momentum, but we'll see what comes out of this. Possibly the fundamentals are going to be different, it will change, but definitely I'll try to look for longs from here if the fundamentals also align at that moment in point. Okay, so those are basically some things that I'm looking at. Definitely some NZD strength. Now overall, looking at NZDCAD, right, it has been consolidative. Okay, so it is very tricky to look for anything here. Also it's just consolidative. You have tapped the yearly level, so it looks better for downside. Now the NZD is bullish at the moment because of the rumors, which is not really rumors, because the central bank of the New Zealand central bank literally said that they were going to, so they probably will, right? So I don't see any downside on the NZD, so I won't take any shorts, although the technicals look good for shorts. NZD switch though, yeah, obviously I was looking for some upside because of the NZD strength, but after we take out this liquidity here, won't do that anymore. Will I take any longs? I don't think so, because we're literally at all-time lows, and I just said that the Swiss franc could strengthen again because of a risk-off environment, and also just because of the faded rumors. All right, so not looking to long this one. Looking at NZD yen, I was looking at longs, but I missed them. They were very beautiful. Obviously now, if we grab that liquidity, am I going to look for any longs? Obviously not, right? So I'm only going to take any setups when the technicals and fundamentals align. So now basically nothing really looks interesting besides AUDUSD possible longs. Okay, also possible shorts, by the way. Once we take out this high, we could take possible shorts, but again, we want to be careful because it is consolidating. GBPNZD is one of my favorites here, as well as GBPAUD, also one of my favorites here. GBPUSD, also one of my favorites, but in the longer run, it is the shorts. Looking at EURNZD, also very clean with the NZD strength, trading towards this low. Overall, the euro is also pretty strong, but overall, I think if we see our confirmation, we could definitely take some setups. And then obviously the best one, or one of the best ones, is EURUSD. Obviously the shorts in the long run are the best ones, or like not like medium term. So like I mentioned, short term I'm viewing downside on the dollar. Medium term I'm looking for upside on the dollar, kind of like a retracement, and maybe here. And long term I'm looking at downside on the dollar, pushing it all the way up higher. Okay, but right now I'm just seeing some downside on the dollar, trading towards these two highs here, and I think those are very beautiful, so I'll try to look for those from this key level here. And that's basically it for this week. This one was a bit longer, more about fundamentals, more relaxed. Let me know if you like it or not, but I'll see you guys next week. Ciao.